Hey everyone, this is Lori Barnes back with a new moon video for you. We have a new moon kicking off the month of December with a Mercury retrograde and a Mars retrograde. Stay tuned to learn all about it. The Sagittarius New Moon is on Saturday, November 31st. If you're on the west coast of the US, it'll be at 10:21 p.m. If you're on the east coast, it'll be at 1:21 a.m. in the morning on Sunday. And if you're in Rome, Italy, it's at 7:21 a.m. I'm broadcasting out of central USA for this new moon. It will be at 12:21 a.m. in the morning if you're in central United States. This new moon is at 9 degrees of Sagittarius. Some of the Sagittarius keywords are adventure, optimism, freedom, vision. Sagittarius is known for its love of learning. It is the archer, so aim high. And Sagittarius likes variety. It is a fire sign, and that brings enthusiasm, curiosity. Sagittarius is known for its independent nature. It's energetic and spontaneous. It's a mutable sign, so that brings some flexibility and adaptability to this new moon. The challenging side or the shadow side of Sagittarius is that there can be some clumsiness, bumping into things. There can be some inconsistency. There's a blunt nature to Sagittarius. If you ask a Sag a question, expect them to answer honestly and bluntly. The psychological need of Sagittarius is to explore and experience. Sagittarius is the type of energy that likes to experience things for the sake of experiencing it. And the archetypes associated with Sagittarius are the explorer, the philosopher, the adventurer, and the perpetual student. The archer is the symbol of Sagittarius. And when we look at the signs, we always want to look at the pair of signs that are opposite each other. So this is going to activate the Sagittarius and the Gemini axis, where Gemini thrives on learning, rote learning, and facts. It likes to communicate and gather knowledge and chit chat. It's a very logical and straightforward sign. Sagittarius is also straightforward, but it looks beyond the details. It really likes to get underneath and find out the why, the philosophy under things, the broader purpose. Sagittarius likes to explore. So let's talk about the vibe of this upcoming new moon. I'm going to share the different energies that will likely show up for us at the new moon, and then I'm going to go into the astrology behind that. We're looking at a new moon that is bold and optimistic and adventurous. With this prominent mutable energy, the energy can kind of be scattered. We can kind of feel like we're all over the place. And of course, there's a Mercury retrograde that's contributing to that as well. The energy can also be somewhat restless. Because it's the Sagittarius new moon, there is this concept of looking for the deeper meaning underneath things. So as you're doing your Mercury retrograde reflection, also bring in some of that understanding of the deeper meaning of things, or looking for the deeper meaning of things and understanding the why. Sagittarius likes to explore and experience. So you may feel the desire to get out and experience new things. There's this idea of aiming high, with the archer and the bow and arrow, and looking beyond the immediate horizon. In fact, mountains can be one of the things that represents Sagittarius, or Jupiter, the planet that rules Sagittarius. Now, because there is a Mercury retrograde, there is this reflective and introspective focus. And as I like to say during the Mercury retrograde, it's a time to look backwards to move forward. This is a time where you could be really inspired by big ideas. That's Jupiter, and visionary thinking, also Jupiter, and also a time to refine some of your big ideas and your big visions with the Mercury retrograde. We have Jupiter and Mercury in opposition. That means they're on either side of the Sagittarius and Gemini axis. What's interesting is that they're in each other's signs. That's called mutual reception in astrology. So they're really sharing their energy. It's going back and forth through this opposition. You can really have some great visionary ideas, some big ideas. Mercury is going to be more into the details and the how-to, whereas Jupiter and Sagittarius are more like the big picture. It's that aim high, aim for the mountains. So you want to really balance this, the big ideas and then the practicality of how to do that. What's going to help that is this Saturn T-square that we have going on at the new moon. And then we have Venus in a trine with Uranus and a sextile to Neptune. Venus is in Capricorn, Uranus is in Taurus. These are earth signs. That's going to help ground some of this energy. Here are some things to do for the new moon. Set your intentions. Of course, you always want to do that during the new moon phase. So you want to wait until the phase actually starts. And I gave you the dates and the times so that you can figure out when that is in your time zone. When you go to set your new moon intentions, look at your big goal, your big vision, and that's Jupiter in Sagittarius. Break that down into actionable steps, and that's Gemini. That's going to help you get into the details and do your to-do list. Remember that we do have the retrograde cycles going on, so you want to make sure that you aren't too rigid in your action items, at least for November, December, and January, because we'll have the Mercury retrograde, then the Mars retrograde. Another thing that you can do is plan an adventure. Now, I advise you to pick something that's local because of the Mercury retrograde. You could get caught up in delays if you try to go far away, but try to do something local this weekend. Think of something that you've never done, something that you've always wanted to experience, something that excites you. Go out and do that. Another idea is to do some vision mapping or vision board. Think about your future and make a vision board. Make it inspirational. That's a Sagittarius word. Think big, think high, think of your big picture vision. Find visual pictures, or you can do it online. You can find graphics and do a visual representation of that big overall goal. Some of the things that you will want to think about for the Mercury retrograde, it is in the sign of Sagittarius. It doesn't change signs. So we'll have the whole retrograde in Sagittarius. And of course, the new moon is in Sagittarius. So we have a lot of Sagittarius energy happening at this new moon. Some of the things that you can bring into your Mercury retrograde work is to do some creative problem solving. Sagittarius is a fire sign, and so that can help bring in some creative ideas. And with the retrograde, you can breathe some new life into a stagnant project, or just a project that's been sitting on the shelf that you haven't been able to get to. Now might be a time to bring that back in and start working on it. I would advise you, if possible, to avoid launching anything new, any new initiatives. Instead, focus on things that have already been started. I like to go back and review the progress that I've made since the last Mercury retrograde, because then you can catch things when they're small. And I also find that when I re-look at something during a Mercury retrograde, I make it better. Now that I've taken it so far and I go back and I review that, I can refine it, I can add to it, I can make it better. So that's a really great thing to do under the Mercury retrograde. You do want to think about balancing, thinking about that Sagittarius and Gemini axis, that you may be overly optimistic, or your project may be really cool and really big and really amazing, but then to actually get it done may take more than you want to give to it, more time, more energy, more money, more. Jupiter tends to expand things. Bring in some practicality with that. And you may even want to look at your big overall vision, the projects that you're working on. Ask yourself, is this realistic? Do I need to update or revise what I'm working on to make it more practical? With so much mutable energy happening at the new moon, there can be a tendency to be scattered, to have some brain fog. So just be aware of that. And we are going into the holiday season. So you may want to just take time off during this Mercury retrograde. Also, the Mars will be retrograde. What you could do is bring in more activities that bring you joy. We're in the holiday season, so bring in as much joy as you can. However, speaking of holidays, with Mercury retrograde, do watch your spending. You may see some bright, shiny, cool things that you want to buy, like new tech things, or there's so much out there to buy. But do be aware that you may regret that purchase later. So be careful with those impulse purchases. To get a better idea of the way that this energy might show up in your chart, you want to get your chart and find the house where Sagittarius is. The topics and themes associated with that house is going to give you more information. Here are the dates so that you can have them on your calendar for Mercury retrograde, or you can take a screenshot if you'd like. Now, Mars is also going retrograde. That's going to happen on December the 6th. Mars is a different type of energy, so it's a different type of retrograde. Where all retrogrades, you could say, have this introspective quality to them, we have to look at the planet and what that planet represents to understand the retrograde. Mars is about your physical energy. It's about doing things. It also can have to do with your drive, like your determination to get something done. It's like that motivator to take action. Think about that as we're going into into this Mars retrograde. You may feel more fatigued or more tired. Track how that's showing up for you. It also is a good time to think about, where are you spread too thin? Where is your calendar just overloaded with stuff? Is it too much? Are you spread so thin that you can't get things done? This could be a time where you evaluate that, and you might think about taking some things out of your calendar. You may have to say no to some things. You may have to cut some things out so that you can actually focus on the things that are really important. Mars does have this tendency to cut. It can cut things out. It's associated with surgery and metal, which knives are made out of. So think about that metaphorically. What might you need to cut out of your life? It's a good time to evaluate how you take action, how you do things, because that's Mars. If you want to learn more about how this is going to show up for you personally, you're going to want to look at your chart and find the area where Mars is retrograde. And that's going to be from Leo to Cancer. And I'm going to give you the degrees. Mars entered its pre-shadow period October 5th, and it's going retrograde on December the 6th, and it will be in Leo at 6 degrees. It will retrograde back into Cancer. It's going to change signs on January the 6th, and then it goes direct on February the 24th at 17 degrees of Cancer. It will get back to the degree and sign where it went retrograde on May the 2nd, and that's when the post-shadow period ends and the entire Mars retrograde cycle ends. So let's take a look at these astrological aspects that are creating this vibe of the new moon. Of course, a new moon always means that the moon and the sun are conjunct, this time in the sign of Sagittarius. This is going to bring some optimism and a sense of possibility into the energetic vibe that's going on out in the world. However, it can lead to some overindulgence or overcommitment, so do be aware of that. But generally speaking, aim high. Think about what's at the top of your mountain. What are you aiming for? What is your big vision? And just remember that caution of overdoing. Be careful not to be pulled in too many different directions at the same time, because that can just be frustrating. And with Mercury retrograde, things just aren't going to go as planned if you try to do too much stuff at the same time. We know that Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius, so the new moon, it's a wide conjunction. You can see in the diagram here that Mercury is at 20 degrees and the sun and the moon are at 9 degrees. Because Mercury is retrograde, it's actually moving towards the sun and the moon is moving towards Mercury very quickly. I am considering this a conjunction, but it is a pretty wide one. With these three bodies together, there's this alignment of the moon qualities, which is your emotions, your habits, the sun, which is vitality in your life force, and then communication, which is Mercury. We can have like a greater interest in cultures, traditions, experiences, knowledge, and philosophy. Jupiter is across the way in the sign of Gemini. This can bring in some extravagance. There can be more generosity, which is nice for the holiday season. There can be a desire for learning more. You might even sign up for a course. Remember to watch out for overdoing it. If you struggle with addiction or addictive type of behaviors, do be careful about that during this time period. Saturn is involved at the new moon. It is in the middle. We call it a T-square between the Sagittarius and the Gemini placements. Now, we know that Mercury and Jupiter are opposite each other in what we call the mutual reception, because they're in each other's signs. This is going to bring about those big ideas. Maybe you'll have some really interesting philosophical discussions. However, there can be difficulty with having boundaries. You can be scattered, overestimate what you can do, and this can lead to burnout if you're doing too much. So having Saturn in this T-square can actually help. It can mediate between this, and Saturn, generally speaking, is about boundaries and structure. So this can help hopefully pull in some of that energy and help mediate it. It can help ground those ideas that are moving around. It is a mutable T-square. You will want to build in some adaptability and flexibility into whatever you're doing. We have Venus in Capricorn, and I'm bringing this into the picture because Venus is in Capricorn, Uranus is in Taurus. These are two earth signs, and that does bring some more grounding energy to this new moon. We want some of that grounding energy with all the retrograde energy going on and with the prominence of mutable energy. It's like, where can we ground ourselves? So look to Venus in Capricorn to do some grounding for you. And Venus is about relationships. It's about how you relate with others or to others. This will help in relationships. And it's not just limited to your romantic relationships, it's relationships with others. If you look at your chart and see where Capricorn is in your chart, that's going to give you more information as to how Venus is active for you at the new moon. There's also the sextile to Neptune, and that can bring in some creativity, some great idea making when you're working in groups, when you're working with others, whether it's with your partner or whether it's at work with your coworkers. You may be inspired to come up with some new ideas because Venus is in Capricorn. That helps make those ideas practical. You want to know where this energy is showing up in your chart. So here are the signs that the planets are in and what you want to look for when you have a copy of your chart. These are the astrology houses giving you a list of those topics that will give you more information when you find the planets in your chart. You find the planets and where they're traveling right now in the sky. You look at your chart and this is going to tell you what the themes and topics are that are going to be activated by that traveling planet. And here is your quote for the Sagittarius new moon. I really love this one. Not all those who wander are lost. That's a very Sagittarian quote, and that's from J.R.R. Tolkien. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back with another video for the upcoming Gemini full moon that's going to take place on December 15th at 23 degrees. If you would like to schedule a consultation with me, you can use that QR code right there, or you can visit LoriBarnesAstrology.com. See you next time. Ciao.